Hello, welcome back. It's been a while for a few reasons. For one, I have been very busy with personal stuff, but for two, the giant list I work off gave me 1971 horror films in a row that I don't consider to be horror. The first was Die Screaming Mary Ann, which you would think would be horror based off the title, but it was really just a mystery. It was an English mystery. That one was okay. Then I watched Black Day for the Ram, which was a giallo, but there was very little violence in it. It was a decent mystery giallo, but it really, if you showed it to most people, there's not really a horror element. That was a decent movie, though. Black Day for the Ram is also known as the Fifth Chord in English-speaking territories. Also, it was based off a book called The Fifth Chord, so that's probably a better film title for it. There's also no ram in it at all. Anyway, that one was pretty good. Then I watched one called Madness, the Eye of the Moon, or Madness, Eyes of the Moon. That was like a really low-budget Italian thriller. I would say that one was not a giallo. It was just, I kind of liked it, but it was pretty poorly done. It's basically about a guy who gets out of, who escapes prison and starts killing people. The budget was so low that there wasn't really much in the ways of special effects or graphic killings. It was watchable, I would say that for sure. Anyway, so the fourth one I watched is this one, which in Italian would be La Notte c'è Evelyn, Usci'dalla, Tomba. I have no idea if I butchered that or not, but it stands for The Night Evelyn Came Out of the Grave. So here's one of the original Italian posters, and then here's the American poster, which looks very different. So based off its original poster, I was worried this was going to be another giallo that was more in the thriller realm, which are still good, but then I just don't feel the need to review all those. This one makes it seem very horror, but unfortunately there's no beheadings in the entire movie. So this is not a very accurate poster. So let's keep our eyes on this one. But this one I will classify as horror. It was great, regardless of genre. It was a great giallo. I would give it an 8 out of 10. Plot twists galore. And another thing that I really like is that it had a lot of main characters, which of course made it difficult to find out who was doing all the bad things that were going on in this film. So I'd give it an 8 out of 10. It's on Shudder right now. It's also available for free on a few places. I think it's on Tubi. On Shudder, you can watch it in Italian, which, unlike many Italian films from the early 70s, almost all the actors here are speaking Italian, although it is dubbed anyway. But they're pretty much all speaking Italian. The lead actor, Anthony Stefan, which I'm pretty sure is an anglicized version of his name, was a Brazilian actor. I read that he was Italian-Brazilian, so I'm not sure if he actually spoke Italian in real life or not. But you can see that the dubbing doesn't match up with his voice, or his lips, I should say. So I imagine that he had a very strong Brazilian Portuguese accent, even if he was speaking Italian, which I think he might have been. A lot of the other characters were definitely speaking Italian because their lips mostly matched up with the dubbing. There was one character who I have no clue what he was speaking, because it didn't match at all, but it didn't look like he was speaking English either. All right, so I have a lot I want to say about this one. I'm trying to remember it all. It was directed by Emilio Miraglia, I should say. His first giallo, his first horror film. He did one more the next year, and that one was called The Red Queen Kills 7 Times. That one's supposed to be really good, so we'll watch that one next year, when we get to next year. It was also scored by Bruno Nicolai, who also scored a few films for Jesus Franco, including Count Dracula and The Throne of Fire, also known as The Bloody Judge. He also did, The Scorpion, The Case of the Scorpion's Tail, which I liked a lot. Sergio Martino did that one, and then he did a later Sergio Martino film that we didn't talk about yet, called All the Colors of the Dark. The main woman in this movie, whose character name is Gladys, not Evelyn, was played by Marina Malfatti, and she was also in All the Colors of the Dark. She was also in a thriller, a giallo type thriller from 1970 called The Last Mrs. Anderson. And we also have a smaller role played by Umberto Rajo. I don't know if I said his last name right. He also had relatively small but somewhat interesting and quirky roles in The Bird of the Crystal Plumage and The Cat o' Nine Tails. So that's all the credits. Okay, like I said, 8 out of 10. You can watch this one for free, so if you like watching these videos, which you probably do if you're this deep into it, you should probably go watch it before you watch the rest of the video, unless you've already seen it. So there's so many plot twists, so many characters. We have Alan, who's the main character, lives in a castle with his cousin and his aunt, even though his aunt looks younger than him and his cousin. His aunt's name is Agatha, his cousin's name is George. By the way, they, for some unknown reason, set this up as if it's in England. The whole thing's filmed in Italy, but they give everybody English names, and they talk about how they have pounds instead of lira. And they, at the very end, one of the characters mentions that it's taking place outside of London, even though it looks really Italian. Like the furniture, everything just seems Italian. I think after watching over 125 films between 1970 and 1971, I'm like starting to be able to clearly tell the difference. Anyway, we've got Alan, his cousin George, his Aunt Agatha. Aunt Agatha's in a wheelchair. The Italians love doing these little quirky things. That other countries weren't really doing this weird stuff. Like I guess today it would actually seem less weird, but yes, there's a character in a wheelchair. It's not important to the plot. She just so happens to be in a wheelchair. Well, okay, there's one important plot point, but not really. Okay, additionally, we have the doctor. Forget the doctor's name. We have the estate manager, whose name is Farley. That's the character played by Umberto Rajo. We have Evelyn, who is dead from the beginning. That's Alan's wife. We have Albert, who is Evelyn's brother, who lives on the ground, the hunting property portion of the castle estate. We have Susan, a stripper, and we have Gladys, another stripper. And there's also a prostitute in there, and I forget her name. So the movie starts out with Alan taking this prostitute back into the castle and bringing her into a medieval torture room and basically whipping her to death. Or actually, he whips her and then he kills her. I forget if he whips her to death or if he just kills her off after. So it's set up where Alan is basically a serial killer. So I figured that was going to be the main focus of the movie, but a little before the halfway mark, after killing a few different redheads, which is his pattern because his wife had red hair, he ends up meeting a stripper named Gladys. Now, if we back it up a little bit, one of the reasons why I would say this is a horror film is because it has a lot of horror elements. One of them being the whole medieval torture room. Okay, sure. It's got a gothic element of being mostly set inside a castle, so that's cool. But there's also the psychological element where basically Alan goes crazy whenever he sees red hair and turns into a homicidal killer. It's not someone... It's almost a fantastic idea where like the red hair sets him off and he has to kill. And then, and I don't know, this part's weird, but early in the movie, he agrees to have a seance. His Aunt Agatha sets up a seance. I don't know if this totally makes sense. First of all, the whole thing is set in England, but they're all speaking in Italian, which is fine, like whatever. Then the seance woman, the medium, speaks in English. Why is she speaking in English when they're all supposed to be English, but they all speak in Italian, but she speaks in English? That doesn't make sense. Also, right at the beginning of the seance, an apparition of Evelyn appears, and everyone in the whole room seems to see it. And it causes Alan to faint. So right there, I'm like, okay, this is a supernatural film. Cool. All right, it's definitely horror. All right, later, there's other horror elements. Like there's a lot of time spent in a crypt, opening graves. There's a snake attack scene. There's rats in it. It's aesthetically horror. So we kept counting it as horror. All right, I'll talk about the snake attack later. So I'm torn between like going through every single plot point here because I like to do that with the gialli sometimes, but I don't really want to ruin it in case you're watching the whole thing. Basically, once he gets married, he doesn't really kill anyone anymore. But then weird stuff happens. Like halfway through the movie, weird stuff starts happening. Like his glass of milk goes missing. Why is his glass of milk missing? Oh, well, his new wife Gladys is going to go get him a new glass of milk. When she goes to get the milk, she sees someone with red hair. And then she comes back and she said, hey, you have a maid with red hair? And he says, no, I don't have a maid with red hair. And he starts getting all worked up like he's going to have to kill somebody. And then, I don't want to go through the whole thing. But I'll tell you some of the violent highlights. There's so many plot twists to go through it all. Would take a long time and just like take a lot of fun out of the movie. So I'm not going to do that. But someone gets killed with a poisonous snake, like the venomous snake is used as a weapon. Like someone takes a snake and makes the snake bite a person. And so that happens. Someone gets buried alive. Someone is eaten by foxes. Okay? And like you see like the foxes like tearing up some intestines or something, which I'm positive were real animal intestines, which made the scene look very real. And someone gets thrown into a swimming pool and then somebody dumps like a 50-pound sack of sulfuric acidic powder into it, and the person gets, cooked by the acid. Now, that's one problem. Two problems why I don't give this a 10 out of 10 is the effects really brings it down. One of them is someone's getting burned by acid. They don't even put any fake burns on them. They don't melt them. They don't show a skeleton or anything. That they really messed up that acid scene, even though it was cool that someone got thrown into a pool of acid. But what the heck? You don't even have a burn on him? Like you could have put a fake burn on him. All right, another issue effects-wise is there's a few whipping scenes, and obviously the whole movie's dubbed, but at one point like the whip didn't like unfurl or whatever, and it still made like a whipping sound, and so the whipping was like really lame. Other than that, like some of the times it was okay. There was a stabbing scene where the person like that looked pretty good for the time. Anyway, overall, the story is great. The character development is great. The writer is really good. It was actually 3 writers co-wrote it, including the director. And 2 of them went on to do that Red Queen Kills 7 Times. So I'm looking forward to that because this one was good. And the writing of it is the best part, really. The cinematography was decent. I really can't judge the acting because it was all dubbed. There was just the effects were lacking a little bit. Other than that, 8 out of 10. I would definitely recommend this one. You can watch on Shudder or Tubi, and I think it's on YouTube also. It's kind of all over the place, so this is a good one to see. I'm going to try real hard to get the next video out within a week so that we don't have to be waiting 4 weeks or whatever craziness. All right, thanks a lot. See you next time.